All right, let's talk today about real estate agents and whether you need one or whether you want one when you're going to buy or sell a home. It's interesting. Not every country, as a matter of just default, uses real estate agents for property transactions. There are countries where it's typical that buyer and seller negotiate directly, and then you bring in a lawyer to actually finalize the transaction. But in the United States, it's typical. Most properties that are bought and sold in most sort of traditional markets have a real estate agent involved. The real estate agent is a professional who will help an individual or a business buy, sell, or rent a property. They usually, ideally, would know the local real estate market. They can assist with finding properties that fit a client's needs and budget. They can advise you on whether the price is high or low. They can negotiate a sale or rental and facilitate some of the paperwork that is done by working with your lawyer. Now, let's first talk about reasons why it's potentially a good thing to have a real estate agent. Knowledge, okay? By working, not spelling that correctly, by working in the market, at least in theory, the real estate agent knows what's available, neighborhoods, correct pricing, etc., more easily and more accurately than the average person, particularly if you're moving to a new area. Sometimes real estate agents will have access to more properties than you might simply by looking online, because they may be aware of colleagues that have properties coming to market that aren't yet listed, and there can be advantages there as well. Most people don't like to negotiate, so the realtor can handle negotiations, of course, with your involvement, but rather than you saying, I'd like to pay less, it's handled realtor to realtor. And for a lot of people, that's a process that they are not familiar with, not comfortable with, or both. And at least in theory, the realtor has a fiduciary responsibility to their client. If they are representing you as a buyer, they're required to work in your best interest. Now, we all know if you don't end up buying, the realtor makes zero. So there is always this discussion of, there is an incentive, at least to some degree, for even a buyer's agent to help get a deal done at a price that's higher than maybe what the market should bear. But that's really a conversation for a different day. Paperwork. Paperwork is one where, depending on the state, there can be everything from the initial offer to items that need to be part of the purchase and sale agreement. Depending on the state, a smoke detector certificate, a lot of different coordination. Appraisals may need to be coordinated. There's a lot of paperwork and logistics, which a real estate agent can not only handle for you, but maybe also handle more quickly. And then more generally speaking, you also have to consider the opportunity cost of doing all of this stuff yourself. Even if you're comfortable with this stuff, depending on how you value your time and the fact that depending on whether you're buying or selling, the realtor fee may come out of your pocket or not, you might just decide it's worth my time to pay someone to be doing these things. Now, what about the other side? When might you not want a real estate agent? Well, one reason that you might want to avoid is savings. Typically, the buyer does not pay any commission. The commission for the buyer's agent is paid by the seller. A typical arrangement would be the seller's agent representing the seller of a home might charge 5%. 2 percentage points of that 5 would go to the buyer's agent, the realtor that brings the buyer. In some states, it's legal for one realtor to represent both buyer and seller, in which case they keep the entire commission. In some states, that is not allowed, at least when I recently looked. So if you are a seller, you might want to experience the savings of not paying a realtor 4, 5, or sometimes 6%, depending on what you negotiate. As a buyer, you might try to buy a property off market so that by saving the seller the commission, they would pass that savings on to you, theoretically. So cost is absolutely a factor. The other thing is you might want to consider how you can get the best deal. In general, For properties that are already listed, you're not going to end up with a better deal by coming in without a realtor, is the reality. But there are situations where if it's an off-market deal, if it's a deal with someone you personally know or whatever, you might actually get a better deal by not bringing in a real estate agent. You might not, okay? The real estate agent might identify things about the property that would actually push the price down for you, for example, or maybe push the price up if you're the seller. So that would maybe be something to consider. If you have knowledge or a network of professionals that you're already comfortable with, that might be another reason. So we might call that knowledge, generally speaking. If you have the knowledge that in a lot of cases, it's the realtor that has. And you also might be in a situation where you just have real estate experience and a lot of these things aren't issues for you. I have done both. I have done transactions with and without realtors. It is absolutely the case that I did not enjoy the negotiation that I had to do when it was an off-market deal, not involving realtors. It wasn't fun. The savings was absolutely interesting. I also was more left wondering, am I actually paying a price that makes sense? Because I'm not getting that opinion from a realtor. Now, you can find plenty of resources online to try to ascertain some of that information, but it's really at the end of the day about comfort level. Most people end up using a real estate agent for both buying and selling.